All right, it's Tuesday night, another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. Kind of a disappointing week for at least one of our teams, but still a fun weekend, and we're approaching closer to the end of the season where games are getting a little more important.
3, 4. Yeah, 4 more weekends, right?
I don't know. I'm not the math guy.
I think so. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 more weekends. Western 2 home series, 2 away series to wrap up the end of the year. Um, some teams only have, well, one team only has 3 more weeks. So Arizona State finishes their season the week before everybody else with that last bye to keep former travel buddies together. They will finish their season with Omaha. Uh, and then Omaha will go and play North Dakota to wrap up their regular season. But still, I mean, it's still close between the top 3 teams. Anyway, there's a gap between 3 and 4. Um, there's Miami down at the bottom. They're 0-16 in conference play. They have one overtime loss to St. Cloud State. Uh, but there's really 3 kind of spots. 1 through 3 is kind of close. 4 through 6 is close. Um, 7 and 8, really the playoff positions are close. And then, like I said, Miami's kind of down there. Never really got off the starting blocks. Um,
They didn't know there was a race. They're still in the locker room drinking the Gatorade, getting a massage.
but I think the surprise kind of is really that St. Cloud and Duluth kind of were ships in passing. Minnesota sitting at or Duluth sitting at 19 points with 16 games played. St. Cloud State with only 15 points through 18 games. Really losing Posh was more impactful than I think a lot of us would have surmised at the beginning of the season. We knew he was a good goalie, but I thought they had the offense and some defensive play that could have sustained them through. Clearly, that's not the case. And Posh did get back in action this weekend on Saturday, but you could tell that he was not 100%. Um, he just looked stiff. In fact, Friday night he did warm ups, took a couple reps in net, did not dress for the game, and was in a walking boot in Lawson. Um, did take kind of like a light warm up Saturday, not real heavy reps, but a high volume of them. And it looked like his right ankle foot area was bugging him to some degree. He didn't seem to push off of it with a lot. Um, it was not as flexible as his left side was. He may have even had it wrapped under his sock and skate. It's kind of hard to tell the way he wears his socks, but definitely was not at the top of his game. I think some goals got past him that normally wouldn't. He didn't get to some pucks that I think he normally would have gotten to had he been 100%. And they're really going to need him to figure out, to continue to get healthy here as the season progresses, because they're looking to be on the road for the playoffs, and they could be anywhere from Western Michigan to Arizona State, or as far as who they could be playing in the first round. And that's
Yeah,
really
I
that's
think
really even if they move up a spot, they could still potentially catch Duluth. They're 4 points back if Duluth has one bad weekend, and if it's a weekend, the last weekend of the year could potentially be one that determines 7 and 8.
yeah, it could be. And well, you even look, I think we might have been in 6 going into this weekend, and then we get swept in Colorado College. They split with North Dakota. That um that's a big difference because now we're 5 points behind where CC is, and we were ahead of them,
Yeah.
I believe, at least one of the 2 weekends. But yeah, it makes a huge difference them getting those points. or we might have been two back. Yeah, we would have been two back
Yeah,
instead of five.
but I mean, you still do have two games in hand, so at some point,
Hmm.
Colorado's going to sit out a weekend, and you're going to play one. Uh, so there's a potential to kind of catch back up, and if you take advantage of that weekend, you would re-jump them, and then it would be do as well as they do, or be better than them on any given weekend, and you're up to sixth. So
But that seems to be the trend over the last couple of years. Maybe not. While adding Arizona State, that's kind of added that third team in the top, but there's usually those two tiers where you have the top two-ish, maybe three, and then you have the middle four, five, six, and then seven and eight, which has changed when Colorado College has improved their program to be, you know, four through seven or three through seven, depending on the year, and then Miami at the bottom. So there is always a separation of the top two teams. It's never one team running away with the whole thing. And that's kind of an interesting trend to look at who's where. But the fact that, yeah, it's not fully locked up yet, but pretty much, the top three teams, they're just battling for position. And now this year, four through six, possibly four through seven, are battling for home ice advantage there.
yeah, and really the surprise is kind of the fact that one Denver is kind of low, but they still have 16. They've only played 16 games, so they still have two up. But Omaha has recovered extremely well after kind of a tough start, at least in the non-conference part. But they're 12-5 in the conference. Getting guys back has been extremely beneficial to them, and even Brent would have told you that like a lot of their struggles was just that they were deep into their roster, deeper than they wanted to be at that point in the season, and it was just a matter of getting guys back. So they're much improved, um, and have earned that number two spot in tied with Arizona State at 37 points through 18 games.
And the end of the game Friday, so Friday's game it was pretty hectic. There was a lot of chaos that seemed to be going on. Nobody really wanted the puck. Nobody was establishing any sort of forecheck or anything. But UMD was putting pressure on late in that game, and I don't know how many block shots that they had. The guys were just diving in front of pucks, selling out. And Brent messaged me. He's like, I haven't seen much of that this year, but I'm glad to see it. And they really were. I think they're starting to believe and realizing what they need to do. Not to say that they didn't believe at the start of the year, but that was a team. I'm like, I hate all these block shots because they saved probably two or three surefire goals by UMD. It was unbelievable to watch. And yeah, I'm upset because it's stopping my team from scoring, but it was really impressive to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think I caught a little bit of it. But they got Saturday night. They got a ton of pucks to let Cozy. They had 50 shots on goal
Hmm.
Saturday night, and I think that speaks one to the talent that Cozy is, but also the development that Duluth still has to go. Um, and and a little bit to the defense. I guess you could say like, hey, he did see 50 shots, but not a lot of them were dangerous. But I would argue that that might just be more of the stage of development that the Duluth team is at. I think they're a very
Hmm.
talented team. I think they're going to get better. But if you give a Denver, a Western, um, maybe even a North Dakota 50 shots on your goalie, the results are not going to be the same even if you're saying low quality chances. Like those are teams that play extremely well, tight to the goalie. They'll find ways to get behind the D and chip pucks back in on net. They'll take advantage of multiple opportunities because that also seems to be a lot of multiple opportunities. I doubt they're ripping 50 shots from the point and like
Right.
Cozy's covering every single one for a stoppage.
No, he played very, very well. The it was not to say there were great chances, but he stopped a lot of the great chances that there were. Uh, can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. I think it was Saturday. There was one he had absolutely no shot on. He had the play, but it was backdoor and can't remember who it was. They were just wide open and easy tap in. But he did all he could. Um, but maybe for Omaha, that's a learning experience where you can get away with it on a team that has the potential like UMD, but is not quite there. You can get away with it against Miami, but you're not going to get away with it against the other top teams. So, well, I mean, look at when they just got trucked by Denver. Like,
Yeah.
get this out of your system, guys. And, uh, UMD didn't play very well defensively, but I think the depth really showed up. And this is also partly just being fed the Omaha broadcast with the Plant and Chagabe line. They were good. They did a lot of the work, but they're young and they played a lot of minutes. There was no depth. And from Omaha, there was depth. Each line was getting pressure. Each line was doing something to impact the game where UMD, other than that line, there really wasn't a whole lot going on. And Friday, Pionk played terrible. And I like him as a player. He just had one of those games. He played better Saturday. He couldn't handle the puck. He couldn't stand up on his skates. He was getting burned out. I was like, dude, you're like one of our top defensemen, but this is not good. If you're having a bad game, this is not good.
And back to the Denver game. That was seven. The second night, the 11-2 game. That was 7 goals on 27 shots that Lacosi faced. So
Hmm.
like that's the difference in where the Denver team is at. Who has seen struggles this year? They are not the Denver team that we've seen a couple years ago. Um, but that's the difference between where Denver's at and where Minnesota Duluth is. Denver is still one of the top scoring teams in the country. In fact, they're the number one scoring team in the country with 4.07 goals per game. I do think this stretch of the schedule for Omaha is the probably maybe one of the toughest they've had so far this year. They have Denver, Duluth is kind of a struggling team. They have Western this weekend. They have where to go? They're off next weekend. It looks like. Then Arizona State. They finished the year with North Dakota. Um, they're playing the teams that are right around them: Western, Arizona State, Denver, North Dakota, all to wrap up the season, and all of those are top 5 teams in the country, top 4 teams in the country, along with them. Um, so they have to compete with the teams at the top of the conference and be dominant against the teams at the bottom of the conference. And so far, they've done that, but they did also give up a lot of goals to a very good Denver team, but a Denver team that has also struggled against really good teams, that being Arizona State and Western Michigan this year. And you
And
can go back and forth on whether Arizona State is a good team or not, but they've been near the top of the conference all year, and they've danced around in the national standings and rankings all year.
and the thing that I noticed was, like I said, Friday was a frantic game. Saturday was a little bit better, a little more structured, but it wasn't one team causing it to be frantic. It wasn't anything anyone was doing. It was Omaha. They weren't crisp, neither were we, and it was passes that should be simple, and they're screwing them up. They're not making the right plays. They're causing the game to be frantic when it really didn't need to be because there's no pressure coming on guys, and they're still screwing it up. And I think that's something that they need to clean up. Because yeah, Simon is a he's a very, very good goalie. We know this, but if the team in front of him is going to play like that, he can only do so much.
Well, I mean, we made the same arguments. I will again. I'm saying that Omaha is much improved than they were at the kind of the midpoint of the season. I'm not trying to take
Mhm.
that away from them. Uh, but we've seen good goalies on bad teams, knowing they're good goalies. In kind of Caden Mberico's first year, we saw what he could be for Colorado College, and just the fact that they didn't have quite the offense they needed to have, but they had a good defense. Um, Ludwig Person down in Miami when he was with Miami,
Yep.
we knew he was a really good goalie, but he was on a bad team. Whether that was coaching or production, whatever it was, that team did not go with him in net. Found more success at North Dakota with a revamped decor in front of him. Found more success
Hmm.
in North Dakota. Um, you look at kind of the seasons that Western has had in the past. That with Brandon Bussey, they had a really good goalie. They didn't always necessarily play the best defense. Even early in Cam's career, they didn't play the best defense in front of him, but they found ways to be successful because they had a good offense and a good goaltender. You have to have at least 2 out of 3 of those, either offense, defense, and goaltending, to be successful. I think at really any level of the game, and that's what Denver has had. They've had really good offense, really good defense, and a solid goalie in
Yep.
Matt Davis and Magnus Corona before him. I would say Corona was probably I would put him maybe a little bit ahead of Davis as far as talent wise,
I
skill wise.
I would put him ahead of Davis, but
But
then you also have to think of the teams that they're playing with
yeah,
too.
but I would say that Davis has a much better defense in front of him. And maybe, well, at least last year he had a much better defense in front of him. I think defensively this year, Denver's a little bit behind where they were,
Hmm.
but the offense is what the offense always was. And so I think the fact that Davis is maybe a little bit below where I would put Corona is kind of why we're seeing the struggles in Denver. Um, Minnesota Duluth, I think a lot of their issue is, at least recently, has been they didn't have the offense that could keep up with some of their better goaltenders who have since moved on, and their goalie room is now kind of struggling a little bit. Their decor is getting better. They didn't have offense the last outside of like 1 or 2 players the last couple of years, and that's led to quite a few struggles. Um, Hopefully, they can turn that around with the talent they have coming in. When we
I'm
talked to Brad, it seemed like they were just in a lull as far as recruiting went. It just wasn't strong recruiting classes for them. Hopefully, that changes where they find maybe they realize they need some experienced talent from the transfer portal, and Sandlin kind of makes some moves in that direction, or changes something. Because right now, to me, it really feels like he's riding his rep, for being in the position and having the administration at least trust that he will find players to get Minnesota Duluth hockey back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think I mean, well, we did see it on the women's side. I don't know, this is shoot probably 10 years ago now. Uh they did fire the women's coach even though she had had success. It hadn't been long enough, and yes, I understand it doesn't pull in the revenue that the men's sport does, but she could only ride her reputation for long enough. I will say both Guyon came back this weekend, so he played Saturday, Nat played Friday. They're both freshmen. They're gonna make freshman mistakes. Uh, what I've seen from both of them is Clayton will, for whatever reason, he will let in easy shots. They trickle through, and then he has to be saved. And I mean, I say easy as they appear. Who knows? Uh, but just outside shots, he seems square to the puck, and all of a sudden it's trickling through, and he's going, "Ah, shit!" Like he panics. Guyon, it seems like the processing isn't quite there on some of the shots. You can see potential in both of them to be a very top duo. because they are solid the majority of the time, but there are those mistakes that freshmen are going to make. And Brett had said you can't have freshmen drive the bus. Well, you got unless they're a complete generational talent. Uh,
Yeah, I will say
but
McAllister did a great job driving the bus the 1 year he was here.
yeah, yeah, he did. He's or like a Jack Eichel or Kale Mc well, was I don't know if McCarr was just a one and done, but
I don't. I want to say no. He might
I
have
want to
been
say
two
no. I think he
because
was two,
he,
but
and then because his brother also went there, but his brother just transferred out this year, like after last year, to somewhere else.
but anyway, regardless, like so you have two freshman goaltenders. Basically, your best line are three freshmen. Uh, kind of the I still would like to see better defense, but I won't put I mean you can't, but I won't put all the goals against on the defense. I would just like to see better defense, like just a solid defense, because I think these goalies are going to be very good and a much better offense. I'll take offense and goaltending and just a solid middle of the pack defense uh moving forward, but I'm just really not seeing that coming from our defensive kids, and I think that's where we need to go in the transfer portal. And hope to God that we don't lose kids like Isaac Howard.
Yeah, he is playing extremely well for Michigan State.
Yeah, they had locally here or it was Big Ten Network on Saturday after the Gopher basketball game. They were showing Michigan State, whoever they were playing, and they highlighted Isaac Howard, and I'm like, son of a, mm, thanks for reminding me again. And you got to hope. I I don't think we're gonna lose any of these freshmen to go pro right now. Ben Steves was, I mean, I believe he was a sophomore when he left, but you have a year like that, kind of like a Ryan McAllister.
Yeah.
Got to make a choice.
Um, I did message to you this weekend that there was some strange business. The hockey gods were playing around. They were breaking out the Ouija board and just casting spells of weirdness over hockey this weekend.
Yes.
Friday night, Western Camro picks up his first shutout of the season. Tristan Lemaire scores his first career hat trick. That's the first time that there's been a shutout and a hat trick in the same game for Western Michigan since I tweeted it. What was it? March 3rd of 2022, I think, and the opponent was Miami, and Max Sasson was the uh, hat trick goal scorer, and Camro was the shutout winning goalie. A little bit, maybe a little bit tougher of a opponent this time, but also no penalties called the entire game against either team, which apparently has happened a few times, but still less than 1% of games kind of end without a penalty called for either side. And then on the flip side, I think there were some kind of soft calls made, some calls that should have been made. Uh, but that I think that's kind of nitpicking. But the way they let them play Friday, at least the first couple calls Saturday, I feel it really would have been let go the Friday game, and the first one that started it um was called boarding, but it really even live did not look to be boarding. It was only a minor. They didn't review it for anything else, but it did look more like the Western player got to the side of the Husky player and was shoulder to shoulder and did not go through the player's back or through the numbers in any way, shape, or form. Um, St. Cloud kind of got away with a hold, what I felt was a hold at the end of the first period, and I let the ref know my feelings on that one.
I'm sure he cares deeply about your feelings.
He probably didn't even hear me, but everyone in my section heard me, and they let me know that it was they felt the same way.
I think
Also, the irony of calling somebody a clown wearing full face paint is not lost on me whatsoever, and in fact, I relish it.
um I think what they do, if I'm not mistaken, is after kind of like they do in the pros after each game, they have somebody else that comes in and they talk to them about their performance and each period talk, what they're seeing, whatever. And I wonder if that has something to do with it, how games are officiated night to night on these weekend series, because we see it all the time where
I
Friday night is so much different than Saturday night.
Yeah, I will say though, I do think across the board we have seen better officiating this year. Um,
I would agree with that.
I have made a lot less complaints both to you and on the internets this year about officiating. I will also say the one thing that drives me nuts is that there are some plays in hockey that are absolutely not judgment calls that apparently some people believe are judgment calls. And the way the rule book is written, I think they either should be cracked down on or they need to be changed, maybe change the way the rule is written and let more of them be called judgment calls, because if you're not going to call it, make it a judgment call in the rule book. But if it's not even supposed to be a judgment call, it either happened or it didn't happen, then refs need to actually take a look at that and start making that call.
I,
Um, and the
I
one
think,
that, oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
I
No,
was
no,
like,
you go ahead.
gonna say the one that I saw this weekend, and you might say it's a stupid rule, but the whitewashing rule, whether you're grabbing, rubbing, or I think there's one other term used, an opponent's face mask or shield, like visor, whatever. Like it's supposed to be literally a 5 minute and a game misconduct or a disqualification. It's not no if, ands, or buts. It's not whether you did it, what the intent was to do it. Uh, it's that it happened. And literally during the Western game, there's a player who's literally not doing anything, and the kid gets his hand completely under the bubble of the Western player and pushing his head back into the glass. Like it's not written as though it's a judgment call. It's his hand is up. He's clearly under the face mask, and the ref is standing there looking at it, smiling, like, "Okay, boys, just move on." Like it's those are the rules. Be the professional, and you want the shit to stop, make the call and at least let it know that it's going to be enforced, and maybe some of that shit cuts out, because the
I,
Friday game there was very little after whistle action on both sides.
I think it's the problem you run into, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all, is there's the whole mentality of let the guys police themselves, right? But then there's what happens if it gets out of control? Well, guess what? You lost control of the game because you didn't enforce it, but you don't want to overstep your bounds necessarily. And this is just the hockey mentality, because every most referees that
Oh yeah.
are in the game, they played it. So you don't want to overstep your bounds like, oh, it's just players being players. But where is that line? And
And
yeah, the
I
rule book is there to not, there is a line there. They just don't
Right,
do it.
and I get that when it's judgment calls, but that's literally one of the few where it's a black and white rule, much like they now made the new hand pass rule. While it's not a penalty and it may or may not affect the game to such a degree, but the new hand pass rule is black and white. It either hit a player's hand and the same team touched the puck, or it didn't hit a player's hand, or the other team touched the puck first. Like it is an instant whistle if a puck touches a hand and is played by the same team now. There's no discretion of whether it was intentional, what zone it's in. It is if the puck is touched by a hand and then played by the same team, it's a dead whistle call, and the face-off goes to either the closest dot or out of the zone if it's the offensive uh, team that committed the penalty, the infraction.
Oh, and I think, I mean, to me, I understand what you're saying about these are the ones that are very few black and white because laid out in rule books, a lot of the rules compared to me compared to other sports, hockey is very simple. But then with a tripping or a hooking or something, what happened prior to that? Did the guy get knocked down and then went into the guy and he tripped him, whatever? But
Yeah,
I think there's a lot more rules that are black and white, at least in the rule book. But these ones, what you're saying is it's either he did it or he didn't.
yeah,
Like there's no interpretation of because you're not gonna go, oh, I got bumped into from behind and all of a sudden my hand went in your face and I'm face washing you.
yeah.
Like that's pretty
There's
plain and simple.
very clearly a intent that your hand is up near and or pushing the player's head back, and the fact that you got completely under the like you pushed hard enough and maneuvered your hand hard enough to be literally under his bubble, which has a chin strap that comes down to keep your dirty little fingered gloves out of somebody's
Hmm.
mouth.
That's
Um,
actually, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of impressed.
and like the other one, like well, I said the same thing a couple years ago when there was the big scrum between Western and Denver. Like the butt ending thing, where you clearly see the Denver player's stick come up, and that's another rule that's pretty solid black and white. And in fact, you don't have to make contact in that rule. It just has to be the motion from the handle of your stick towards an opponent player, and it should be called. But again, these are it's probably nitpicking overall. I would say that officiating has been significantly better this year than it has in years past. Um, and I think refs would agree as well. Um,
I also don't think the reviews are, or the reviews that I've seen, I don't think they're taking as long. And the ones that are, I mean, they deserve it at a certain point, though. As a fan, I just don't care if you got it right or not. If it's that minuscule that you have to take that long, then forget it.
yeah.
But I think the reviews, they're doing a very good job of expediting it. And I really haven't had any complaints either, where it's like you look at something and you're like, did they review it for a major? They call a major? Oh yeah, that probably was a major. And just they didn't call it that on the ice or whatever it is. So I think they did a really good job. And then a linesman just refed his last game at Baxter this past weekend. Um, so they had a nice little tribute to him and seemed like both teams went and shook his hand and thanked him for his service to the game. And he was crying in the
Oh,
pictures that the NCHC put out.
yeah. And then the other one was that like I don't know why they maybe it was because the game was out of hand and it was near the end of the game. Uh but they called a standard 2 minute penalty. I think there was 37 seconds left on the Saturday game. They call it a standard 2 minute penalty when it looked like the Western player was clearly on a breakaway and was behind everybody but the goalie, and it should have been a penalty shot. I don't know. Maybe the defender was technically within some amount of steps that he wouldn't call it a clear breakaway, but as far as I knew, it was if he's between the defender is behind the skater and it's no one between the skater and the goalie, it's considered a breakaway and it should be a penalty shot in that
I
situation.
think there at one time was a rule of which line it was, but that could have changed. But To me, it should be like top of the circles or something.
My
If
understanding is when it's
it,
a clear breakaway
yeah,
and the player is either chased down or, like I said, is behind. It's defenseman, player, goalie, and you take him down from behind in most situations, other than if you literally were stuck at each other's hip at the blue line.
but I see that's one that I don't get most of the time either because how many times are we watching just any old hockey game and we see a breakaway and a guy gets hauled down and you're like that should be a penalty shot and they're like no 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't
that might
make sense.
maybe that's a judgment call one where they can award the 2 minute or the penalty shot. Um, I don't know. I'd have to go look through the rule book to find it, and I just don't want to do that right now on stream.
I think if I remember correctly, well, one of the things is taking away a scoring chance. Well, yeah, the scoring chance is the breakaway.
Yeah.
Um,
But again, it was I mean,
yeah.
it was a 6-1 game. It wasn't like it was close and it was 37 seconds left in the game. Um, so did it
Yeah,
it didn't affect the game. I don't know. Maybe the penalty shot wouldn't have affected the game either. Now you're still making those kids play 5-on-4 for an extra second or two. How many more shots are they ripping on that goalie? You know, maybe one still catches him in the mask or something and rings his bell. Who knows? I don't know. Just throwing
yeah.
anything out there.
I think those ones, though, like most people, for me, it's like, eh, should it have been? Yeah. Am I really going to be that upset? You only call it a 2 minute? No, because just want to get the hell out of here. Um, Not that it really makes a difference, but you realize the game's over. I think the kids realize the game's over.
Yeah.
I think you guys are up 6-1. Yeah.
I,
We're not even gonna really shoot.
I guess really the funniest part came after the game, and Dan's reminding me of this in the chat. But during the post game, Ty Henricks has kind of come on a little bit lately, and there was apparently a conversation with Pat Ferschweiler and Ty Henricks on the bench after Henricks got his first goal of the game. That kind of really challenging Ty's like, have you ever had 2 goals in a college game? And he's like, no, well, go get another one. And he happened to be the player who was on a breakaway skating towards the goalie when he got pulled down or hooked or tripped or whatever the call
Whatever
was.
it was.
Yeah. So I think really when you look at it, it's like, oh, he had an opportunity to potentially get another one if he had been given the breakaway, more so than them sending out, even if it was the second power play unit for 40 seconds or 37 seconds or whatever it was. But yeah, that was the funny thing after the game in regards to that play was the player that first was like, go get another one, buddy. And he's in there on a breakaway and he just gets taken away from him.
The nice part is they don't have incentives as far as if you get this that we know of.
Well, I mean, there is. So I don't know if other universities do it the same way, but as part of the NIL deal, um, I guess you could do it for any player, but Western does show the 3 stars of the night or whatever, and they do put the link up for the NIL program where you can contribute directly to the student athlete of your choice. And so I guess by being one of the 3 stars, there's a slight extra promotion there, and your name's a little bit more out there for someone to potentially contribute to. Um, in that
Is
regard.
it going to that athlete specifically? Do you like, or is it going to the athlete collective? Because I know here there's like for
So
Minnesota there's an athlete collective.
the way it appears is there's an athlete collective, or you could broadly donate to that, and that would be distributed. However, I guess I'm not entirely sure.
Your $100 turn into a penny and a half.
Yeah, but there's also ways to contribute or donate directly to individual players and sponsor or provide to specific players. And even now, uh, they can get in the Kalamazoo area if you visit the what is it Rally House stores. They have personalized Western team like player named apparel, kind of like how North Dakota does at the Sioux shop. So it looks like they're getting into that a little bit through their new official clothing store partner, Rally House. That also goes. Some of that also goes directly to the player. So
I just find it interesting if it's like how they work it for the donating to a like specific player for the start of the game or whatever, how that would work. Because to me,
well, I think the app is open to all players at all times. But all I'm saying is that like they also mention it when they do their mentioning of the 3 stars of the night. It's not like they're getting only the 3 stars of the night can be contributed to. Any player at any time can be contributed to. There's just a slight bit of additional promotion if you're one of the top players and your picture is under the link to the app to donate to the players.
so kind of like but you get the person that does not know any of the Western players, or and they like just happen to come out to the game and they see this and they are like, oh well, I want to help these kids out. I don't know any of these guys. All right, well, Tristan Lemaire, I'll donate to him,
Yeah,
camera. But I wonder, it's basically a GoFundMe for the players.
yeah. I mean, that's at least what it looks like is something similar to that. I mean, without knowing more about it, and maybe uh next month when we have the AD on, we can ask him about it and see if that's something he can better inform us of.
Yeah, because I don't understand what would then make that different, because the way I understand NIL is companies will pay you instead of just you or me donating to
Well,
these guys. Like we could do that beforehand and that
no.
shouldn't.
Nope. So until NIL came out, there could be no passage of funds or really anything from a quote unquote booster business person to the player unless it was like an out of season 9 to 5 regular job. Like I couldn't just walk up to a player and give him $20. Like that would still be considered an inappropriate um whatever the wording was. Uh like the Ohio State players that started a lot of this, they were trading things like an autograph for a tattoo or something. It was you couldn't do it. Uh there were players who would participate at like coaching camps. Their names couldn't be on the camp if they were getting paid or promoting it because it was an inappropriate benefit. Uh, Now with NIL, players can run their own camps and be paid with their name, or they can have like a YouTube channel, or they could stream on Twitch if they wanted to stream on Twitch during the week. Um, that was a thing that happened with the kicker from Florida. I think it was Florida State destroying. That was his thing. He was streaming on YouTube and like had like 500,000 followers or something on his YouTube channel at the same time he's kicking at Florida State, and the NCAA and the university go, well, you can either continue to play football and kick for your scholarship, but you have to shut your YouTube channel down, or you can stay on YouTube and you're no longer a part of the team, you're no longer a part of the university. How you doing? Keep it moving, type of deal. So he said screw it and stayed on YouTube, made bank.
So then is that different than like we- before all this, I go out to say I'm up in Duluth, I go to grandma's and I see Scotty Perunovich. I go, hey Scotty, let me buy you a beer. can he not accept that? Because I mean, guys were doing that all the time. That's kind of what it's sounding like. Or
Yeah, I
like,
mean
hey,
that.
Scotty, like
I guess
I
it.
think there's a limit on the amount of money because I know just as
Well,
amateur athletes, I couldn't have make more than $5,000 outside of work.
well, it depended on who. I mean, you as an individual, maybe you could get away with it, but if it was anybody who represented the school in any way, they couldn't have done it. I mean, look at what was it? Um, One of the big things with the basketball players, like back in the '90s, was like they took a kid out to lunch during a recruiting trip, and the NCAA found out about it, and it was a recruiting violation. You provided an illegal benefit. Uh, Now, did it
Hmm.
happen? Sure. I mean, we found out about guys who, like, coaches were paying players' parents rent for years while they were in college, or somehow,
Yeah.
somehow a kid from rural Alabama was driving a brand new Camaro at school in L.A. Like,
But
that didn't come from grandma for getting straight A's on your last report card in high school.
I'm guessing though, with the associated with the school, that would mean administratively because I mean, we had recruit weekend and we take the guys out for dinner, like or do whatever as players. We weren't told to do it. We just wanted to do it. So I don't know. Maybe that was a recruiting violation, but it's D3. Who the hell cares?
Well, I mean, I think there's certain like exceptions to the rule, but I think the general rule was that if there couldn't be an exchange of money in any way, shape, or form, there were certain things that you could or couldn't do, and you definitely couldn't use your name or position on the athletic field of choice or whatever it was to benefit yourself in any way, shape, or form. So if you went to a restaurant and there was, after a game and someone's like, "Oh, hey, let me buy you a beer for how well you played tonight," that would be an illegal benefit, and potentially, if it was seen, it could have been caught. Did it happen? Probably. Probably happens all the time. Like who?
There's a thing that just came out allegedly that Saquon Barkley never bought a drink at the bar, and it's like, for the love of
Well,
God,
no shit.
I, there is so much shit that the NCAA does that is so stupid,
Yeah, I'm not
and
disagreeing with you.
I know I'm just trying to like wrap my mind around all this, and it's like, dear God, like technically we weren't allowed to gamble at all, like period.
Yeah.
Like even within our Tennessee, we were playing like penny poker
Oh
on our
yeah.
spring break trip. We're like we were doing the NCAA tournament bracket. Like, really? We're not allowed to do this? We're all adults here, even if we don't act like it and still don't act like it.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, look at the nonsense that gambling has been in pro sports anyway. Uh, what was it? Shane Pinto got suspended for like half a season, even though one of the sponsors on his helmet is a fucking gambling website. Just
yeah.
the absurdity that sports gambling is in the sports world. I mean, uh,
Jameson
Jameson Williams
Williams.
got
Yeah.
suspended for gambling on, I want to say it was like college football at the hotel the team was staying at on a road trip, and it was technically considered uh team property or team.
Yeah. Premises of
Yeah,
whatever.
because they were paying for like the hotel room for the night as part of the expense of the season.
Like, I understand the whole, as long as it's not on the sport in the league that you're in, like
Well,
don't do that.
even like, I guess my only thing is like, don't gamble on your own shit. By that I mean literally your own game.
Your own team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But like I can understand the like
I guess maybe I get.
NFL players don't gamble on the NFL
Yeah,
because
they
you
might
have
have
friends
some
on other
insider
teams.
information, or yeah, but at the same time, like I would want to bet on my friends.
Right. Right.
Like,
But
oh,
like
I know my friend's gonna fucking go off this weekend because that's my boy. I'll put some money on my boy to just have a stupid game and put up like 500 yards or whatever.
But yeah, like if I'm playing in the NHL and I want to put money on Joey Logano to win the Daytona 500,
I think I
what
think
does that
now
matter?
I think now they can't. Well, I think in the NFL they can, as long as again they're not like
On
on NFL property. Yet, how many commercials during an NFL season are for FanDuel, for
how many sports books are in
Sports
stadiums
Kings?
already?
Yeah,
I
DraftKings. Um,
where was it? Where was I
Shit,
that
FanDuel owns an entire sports broadcasting network now because they bought
yeah,
the
Bally's.
Bally's.
And
Um,
Bally's was a casino.
yeah, like
And
it's so
I,
stupid.
I can't remember what baseball. I think it was. I want to say it was the National Stadium
I think you can
that
even watch.
MGM had a betting window
Yeah,
right there.
I think you can watch some of the NHL games on the FanDuel app. Like, they stream right to the
Uh,
app.
Probably.
But yeah, it's just stupid. Anyway, let's let's
Anyway,
let's move
yeah,
on
we
from
got
shit we know
sidetracked.
nothing about into back into the thing we know,
Shit we know nothing about.
something else we know nothing about. This weekend's games, some big ones. Uh, a top two matchup between Omaha and Western Michigan here in Kalamazoo this weekend. Uh, Omaha's going to have to kind of step it up again. I think they could see the similar troubles to what they saw against Denver a couple weeks ago. Western did sweep Omaha in November, and everyone's saying that Omaha is a different team. And while I believe that, um, I think this Western team has gelled a lot more since then. And this Western team is no joke. They are currently the number one team in the conference. They have, in fact, not lost in regulation at all this season in conference play. Um, they're 13-2-1. They're 2-2 in overtime. 40 points. They have two of the top goalies in the country right now, so it doesn't matter which goalie you're going to see. They're both extremely tough to beat. They are the number two scoring defense country or team in the country with 1.73 goals allowed. Minnesota State is the only team better at 1.6 through 30 games, playing four more than Western has played. Scoring offense, they are number five behind Denver is number one. Arizona State is number four, so they're the third highest scoring offense in the conference, scoring 3.62 goals a game. They have the number one PK in the country, only allowing four penalty goals all season. They are at a 9.33% on the PK. In fact, they're one of the lowest penalized teams in the country, too. Second behind Dartmouth, they've only allowed 60 opportunities on the power play for opposing teams. Dartmouth has only allowed 58. Who has fewer? They are Cam Rowe, I believe, is the number one goalie in the country as far as winning percentage goes. Yep, he's number one. Where'd Hampton fall to?
Bet he's just a terrible guy. No, I'm kidding.
Hampton's at 5.91 winning percentage because he's gotten some of the Saturday games. Um, Cam's 14-1. His only loss has come to Michigan State in the GLI. Hampton has some losses to some big teams, a shootout loss to Colorado, an overtime loss to Denver, the late third period loss to BC, and the loss to Michigan. Um, Both goalies are top 6 in save percentage. Cam, I believe, is slightly higher. Nope, Hampton's actually higher with a 4.92 in third, and Cam is he's now seventh with a 9.34 save percentage. Face off dot wise, Tim Washy's one of the best in the country percentage
Yeah,
wise.
yes.
Like there's not a lot of weakness to this team if they play the right way. So Omaha's definitely going to have their hands full. I know they're, like I said, they've picked up lately. Erdal's been playing great. The only thing that, like I said, the concern I have for Omaha, and Brent kind of pointed this out to us, which is why I was hoping he was going to be on the show today, was that they apparently said they're okay with pucks getting to that cozy as long as, one, you're limiting dangerous chances, and two, he can see the puck clearly. But the top teams in the country, the top scoring teams in the country, are, one, going to take advantage of that if you're letting pucks get to the goalie. Um,
And high danger.
yes, they're going to make them dangerous one way or another, whether it's where they're shooting from, how they're shooting, looking for rebounds as opposed to just trying to put everything past the goaltender. Western is a team that likes high volume shooting anyway, so that's kind of playing into their hand a little bit. Um, if you're allowing that many shots, to me it really says that you're kind of having a hard time in your own zone. And Western loves to play in the offensive zone. Their defense love to get activated from the blue line into the goalie on their opponent's side of the ice. So to me, those two things feel like you're playing into Western's strengths, as opposed to taking advantage of their weaknesses. Um, I do believe it will be a tough matchup. I think it'll be a low scoring event potentially, but Omaha's going to have to play more how they did against Duluth than how they played against Colorado College. And again, they're going up against two extremely tough goaltenders. So pick a night. It's not going to be easy either night for them.
I think he meant against Denver, but I
Yes.
for Omaha, at least on that second night, even though they did pick up that win, I think they're gonna have to still play better than they played against us. This was better, but we're a team that you can get kind of frantic with and still be okay. I don't think I don't think you can get away with a lot of chaotic play against a Western team because the Western team is going to either find a way to score or they're going to settle it down and make it more structured. But if they're the ones settling it down, then they're dictating the play, and Omaha doesn't want that. They need to play the game that they were playing. They also need to play defense like they were at the end of the Friday game and just selling out to block shots. Um, I do think it'll be a good series. I just think Western still comes out on top, but maybe Omaha kind of the progression after that Friday loss to Denver and getting through UMD will help them. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they can ride the momentum that Duluth gave them a little bit, or if it's a situation where they're taking advantage of a down team, and how will they answer against one of the better teams in the country in a lot of ways, in especially in the pairwise rankings and in the conference standings. They're
I
still, I think they're like 27th in the pairwise, so they have some work to do. But a lot of their games are teams ahead of them too.
and I will say Omaha did show me at least at the first part of the game on Friday what I was kind of expecting where they were upset with what happened to against Denver and they got to their game and they were outplaying UMD for I think for the majority of the first period, and it was like, okay, yeah, that's what I was saying, but by look out for Omaha. Um,
I think if you're Omaha, you have to really press the Friday game. Western's done a really good job of winning the first game of the series, uh, and getting out ahead of teams. The other thing that I really liked about the Western team this weekend was that they got into the games extremely quick, both nights, scoring two, maybe even three goals in the first. No, they scored two in the first period Friday. One of them came early. They scored three in the first period Saturday. So, they got right on top of teams and were able to kind of dictate the game right from the rip. If you're Miami, you got to start hot and hope to disrupt the flow early and often.
you
Uh,
mean Omaha?
if you're Omaha, you have to disrupt the flow of the game from the rip. The other thing coming into this weekend that is a little bit different is Saturday will actually be senior night. Western deciding to move it up. It's not the last Saturday of the season, of the regular season. That game, I believe, is against North Dakota. Some of the reasoning behind that may be that it is spring break weekend, and so to have the students supported a little bit heavier during the senior weekend, they moved it up a week or a couple weeks, um, to this Saturday, so that game will have a little bit of a delay to it, and that might throw the rhythm off too. So there's some opportunities here for Omaha, but Omaha, like I said, they've got to get to a fast start and they've got to really press the Friday game, kind of like it's a Saturday game after a loss. You can't wait for Saturday to be the game that you go heavy on against this Western team. They've been
Mhm.
extremely good on Friday nights, and they've been extremely good in the first game of a series this year. I'm trying to say things without saying them. So if you get bored and you want to have some fun, go look at the Western schedule and look at the way games have gone, and look at goalies win loss records and figure out when games were lost and when they weren't. All I'm saying.
Um,
The next
then I
one,
guess,
there's a whole lot of maroon and gold going to be in Minnesota Duluth this weekend. You
yeah,
you welcome in the Arizona State Sun Devils to the frozen land of Minnesota.
I almost wanted to call them the Coyotes. Just
I
sorry, last couple of years of the NHL.
think
I think this is gonna be tough.
I think you guys need to start praying for some cold weather to cool off this Arizona State team.
It was fucking -16 this morning,
I mean,
so
I'm just saying,
it's -2 right now here, and I'm 2 hours south, 2.5 hours south.
Arizona State has won 3 out of 4 against Denver this year. Both games last weekend going to overtime, and the Bulldogs these be struggling. So it'd be cool if you guys could help out Western a little bit and slow them down a little bit here. Uh,
I I think it's just what we talked about. It's gonna be tough, but if we can get a little bit of depth scoring outside of that top line and get, even just our second line going, and not the freshman line, we could be okay. I don't know who's gonna play. I think at this point in the season where we're at, uh, especially with Guyon being hurt and Knapp getting a bunch of time in net, I think we're gonna do that rotation of Friday, Saturday. I'm gonna take a stab in the dark here and say Knapp gets Friday and Guyon gets Saturday. Uh, could go anyway, but we need them to start picking up their play a little bit more and not having pucks trickle through, not having lapses in awareness from those guys to stand a chance against this team. And just I know I harped on them earlier, but Pionk needs to play better, and the whole defensive core needs to play better. But he just stood out to me on Friday with how poorly he played. And you know what? Nobody's going to be harder on themselves than the player, right? Like the players know. So what I say, I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just pointing out what we all saw and what they know. Uh, he needs to play better in it. I think if he plays better, he seems to kind of be the leader of that defense as far as I mean, at least name wise. Um, but when he goes, the rest of the defensive core goes, I think. So I'm not I'm kind of projecting a repeat of last weekend for us and getting swept at home, but who knows? They've surprised me before.
Yeah, I mean, a surprise would be good considering the team ahead of you, Colorado College, is hosting Miami this weekend. Um, I mean,
We don't need to spend more than 30 seconds on this one.
ooh, Miami needs to. I mean, they've been playing hard. They've been playing 60 minutes, but they just are not getting any kind of results.
They're
Um,
going 0 for 3. They're not going 1 for 3. They're not going 2 for 3. They're going 0 for 3.
they are just struggle bussing so hard. They are struggle bussing so hard. I think the back wheels fell off the struggle bus, and they are trying to drag ass with two tires that
Oh,
are
I think they're down to
rapidly
one. They're
deflating. They got two
they're
half
down to one
tires.
tire.
They look like the Dynaco car at the end of Cars.
Yeah.
Like just nothing's going right there.
The one that was supposed to be
Richard
Richard
Petty,
Petty.
the King. Yeah.
Yep.
The last matchup this weekend, North Dakota travels to Denver. Uh, these two teams, boy, they could not be any closer in the standings. They are separated by 1 point, that 1 point being earned by North Dakota in a shootout win. They've both played 16 games. They both sit with a conference record of 9-6-1. They are both 2-1 in overtime. Denver has scored more goals at 62 and only allowed 46. North Dakota scoring 54, allowing 48. Um, Overall, Denver is 27-1, 27-1, not
There you go.
27-1.
Good job.
Uh, and then North Dakota 14, 11, and 2. So overall wise, Denver should be, I think the favorite here. But conference wise, man, North Dakota has really turned it up since struggling in the non conference, or at least being up and down in the non conference. But they have also struggled a little bit in conference play, and they do not have an easy schedule left. Denver this weekend, I think Western next weekend, Omaha to finish the year. I don't know who they play that third week. Oh, nope, I got that wrong. They're at Denver this week, home for Duluth,
I was gonna say
then
I think we
then at Western,
had
then
our
they
second
finish the
series.
season with Omaha. So I just forgot that I skipped a week. I skipped the week that Western's at Arizona State next weekend.
And I mean, North Dakota when they don't score on themselves,
Which they did
they're
twice.
they're they're a solid team and earning that split last weekend with Arizona State. A team at the top of the conference. They're North Dakota is more good than they are bad.
I think they're
They're
another young team
yeah, I think so too.
outside
But
of their goaltender.
I wanted to say they're the consistently inconsistent team, but they're not that like Omaha has been throughout the past few years. Omaha is more consistent this year, but I think this North Dakota team is more consistent than those Omaha teams have been. Maybe not by a lot, but I
Mm,
feel like they're a little, at least a little bit more competitive in their games than some of the ones that Omaha would have the down ones.
eh, I mean, maybe. I mean, I guess North Dakota has had some injury issues this year too, losing key guys in key spots. I think they're close to healthy, or they're at least healthier now. Um, the Friday game is the CBS Sports Network game, so at least we won't have to listen to the terrible Denver announcers for one game. We'll have the competent Alex and Dave on CBS Sports Network with Shireen. So a good crew who always does a great job when they get to talk about NCHC hockey.
I the one thing that I love, Alex, he's got that perfect calmness until things happen, and then he gets excited. But then you got like a John Butchergrass when somebody flips it in from center ice and oh my God, there's a shot on net, and you're like, no. Uh, and then Dave, just his overall knowledge of the game, it's always fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that one. Um,
Again, I mean it's two teams that are right there at 4-5. Uh Honestly, this series for both of those teams could be big as far as trying to earn home ice for the first round of the playoffs. Like it won't be the determining series by any means, but if one of those teams sweeps the other, that puts them in a very good spot to have the advantage over the other going into the last 3 weekends of the season. So honestly, actually, like honestly, a big matchup, and it should be a good tilt. I think the edge goes to Denver. Overall, they appear to be the better team there, but I would not count North Dakota out by any stretch of the imagination. They are a very good team once again. But
and you know what? Maybe this is a good weekend for St. Cloud to have off and get a
at least give Posh some
little
time to get
reset.
healthier
Yeah.
before the final push, because they definitely need him to be back at 100, at least 95%. Um,
Yeah, that's they need his help. They've struggled. Um,
and honestly, you guys
and-
need to take Arizona out just as much for yourselves as for us to get a little more space on St. Cloud State.
oh yeah, we'd be helping both you and us at the same time, so we can keep within striking distance of CC.
Yeah,
Because I mean, if we get swept, it's close to game over, Johnny.
yeah, gotta do something. These are the weekends that everything gets tighter and tighter and tighter till the last weekend. Um, yeah, go take a dive down in the records and go look at some stuff. Go swim around in the schedule and in the stats and
Why is
see
that making me feel uncomfortable?
see some things because this is a good year for stats. Somehow Pat Frischweiler and his crew have found yet another way to create more history uh, at Western Michigan, like he has his first 3 years. Um, I think if at this point, to me at least, I would say you're the three front runners for the coach of the year. You know, we're kind of getting close to the end of the year. Let's throw some fun out here. Coach of the year, the three candidates to me would be Pat Frischweiler for Western Michigan, um, Powers for Arizona State, and is it Mike Gabinet or Mike?
I'll say Mike sounds right, but
The
that's
Omaha,
also
the
good.
the head coach for
The
Omaha.
yeah, the Omaha.
Um,
I
I think what he's been able to do with the injuries down there and get them back and be in a position to be playing not only for home ice but competitive at the top of the conference and a shot at the Penrose this late in the season is outstanding. Um, what Powers has done in his first year in the conference. A lot of people, I mean, a lot of people were saying that they're supposed to be where St. Cloud is. Maybe not with 15 points, but they're not supposed to be at the top of the conference competing for a Penrose in their first season. But he's got him up there, and he's got him playing extremely well and doing things that maybe surprising. Like Denver was on like a 12-0 run when Arizona State and Powers went up to Magnus Arena and swept them. Um, which, to be fair, I did say was questionable because Denver hadn't really played anybody top until that point,
Mhm.
and their weaknesses were shown to them by Arizona State. I'm not taking away anything from Arizona State either. That is a tough building to go into and do that to a team on that big of a role. And then, Western was figured to be in a slump again because they had lost so much offense, except they have depth in scoring. They have two of the best goaltenders in the country. Their defense has vastly improved. They have a ridiculous penalty kill, and Pat Frischweiler will be the first to say that's more on JJ Crew and Coach Herter. But I think the coach of the year is sometimes a collective award for the entire coaching staff because there's not an assistant coach of the year category.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it kind of comes down to, at least if I were to have a vote, no offense to First, but he would be third just because he's already shown what he can do when people think they're going to have a down year, and he he's kept this team up now, right? Um, Powers first year in the conference, people didn't think they were going to be where they're at. There's that consideration there. And Gabinet, I Omaha, we always kind of know where they're at. They're right around there. They're overachieving a little bit. I Those would be the top three, but I would put first, third, just because I have higher expectations of him and he's meeting them. Um,
I will. I don't have them in any particular order yet. I want to see how the rest of the season plays out. But at what is essentially like the 3/4 mark of the season, um, if not, slightly maybe 80% of the season completed, uh,
Whatever it is.
those would be. I think for Western it's actually 3/4 because there's 24 conference game. We played 16, so yeah, we're basically 3/4 of the way for a lot of the teams. Um, those would be my top three right now. And as the last quarter of the season goes, I will definitely narrow that down more and put them into a specific placement. But those are the three I'm sitting at right now. If you want to do a couple others who we would pick, let's see what the actual categories are. Goaltender of the year, I know, is one of them. Um, and even though you can say that split time has to be accounted for, which it does, I'm not taking away anything from goalies who play every single game. Not as many in the conference this year as there have been in years past. And Berko's kind of losing some time. Latkozi's been spelled a few times. Davis has been spelled a few times. Um, Homer has played well at Arizona State. I'm not entirely sure he's 100% played every game.
I don't think
Um,
so, but I could be wrong.
Posh has missed a lot of games, so he kind of gets essentially disqualified for
Yeah,
lack of games
he's
played.
DQ.
Um, where do we go? What do I want? What do I want?
Guyon and Knapp have been
Split time.
basically split, yeah, with Guyon being injured. Steppenfelter
What am I looking for? Oh, maybe it's here.
at North Dakota.
No, where's the end of the year awards?
I don't know, Margot.
What? That's not it. That's the Media Excellence Award.
That's definitely not us.
It will never be. Well, I mean, it's always a dream, right?
It's something to strive for, but
Listen,
hell's gonna freeze over, pigs are gonna fly, and
we are media, but we are no way excellent. All right. Oh, annual awards. Wow, if you'd learn to fucking read, buddy. I don't have my,
that perfect example why.
I don't have my glasses on. Okay. Um, I think right now, honestly, the goaltender of the year, my front runner, is Cam Rowe. And again, I'm trying to say things without saying things, but go look at his record. Um, go look at what he's done because it's always by conference numbers. And when I was talking about the fact that he is playing Omaha this weekend, Cam has one loss and it's to Michigan State in the GLI.
Hmm.
That's that's not a conference game. He
Also had
is
a cat show up, didn't you?
Yeah,
I heard that one.
he is leading the country in winning percentage. So pretty sure he's leading the NCHC in winning percentage. His other stats are up there as well. Save percentage, he's number 6 in the country. Uh, he picked up an assist this year. His goals against average is solid. His numbers are all there in the right spots. Um, After him, even though he has a few more losses on the conference standings, it's hard to argue that Hampton hasn't played well. I might put him maybe third though, and then the Arizona State goalie would probably be my number two. Uh, if I had to go one, two, three, a lot of these I really don't have in any specific order yet because I haven't seen everybody in person, and I won't see everybody in person, but I've watched enough Arizona State games to know that their goalie is really good too and has shown up in some big spots in Homer. Um, and I mean, like a lot. It's not going to be the Miami goalie. I'll tell you that.
Oh, come on.
I know, right? Big shock there. Matt Davis has had some issues. Like Cozy has been lit up a couple times. That's why those guys aren't there. Uh, Septenfelter has come in and played pretty well for North Dakota, but he's had to be spelled in some games and had some lopsided games. And Berko's not what we've seen in years past from him. He's kind of having a little bit of a struggle this year. And both, Minnesota goalies are freshmen, but they're 6-10 combined in the conference. And when conference stats are where they kind of get the big numbers, I think the number one guy right now has to be Cam Rowe, and it's not like in a lot of places are running the same guy every night. Like it's going to have to be a split time goalie who probably wins that award.
Yeah, there really isn't even a team that's run one out there consistently.
Yeah. Um, Player of the year. I'd have to. I don't know what all the stats are for all the players. I don't think a player of the year is coming from Western this year. That much I will say. I'm trying to think of who are the big names that I know for sure are having. I think it's a Denver player. If it's going to be anybody, I wish they had the stat leaders.
I think I regardless, I just have a feeling that they're gonna give it to Zeev just because of his name, but could be wrong. Um, Laba is playing very well for Colorado College.
Yep.
He would be one to look out for. Um,
Jack Devine for Denver is up
yep.
there again. Um, Zach Erdahl for Omaha would be kind of like their nominee, I would think, if each team had a nominee. Um, a Western player to maybe be like a sneaky backside nominee would be probably Alex Bump. He's had a really good second half of the season. No one from Western is killing it this year, but Bump does lead the team with 30 points, 12 assists, 12 goals, 18 assists. Um,
I was
he,
gonna say he would probably be your nominee
yeah,
as far as anybody outside of the goaltending.
Uh, Forward of the year, that's probably going to be between Jack Devine and someone else from Denver. I think who is it? I think there's another Denver kid who's lighting it up. Offensive defenseman of the
Uh,
year, that's going to be Zeev Buyum for sure.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Defensive defenseman of the year, there's probably a few names that could go here. No one that I could think of offhand, because the defensive defenseman of the year is going to be someone who doesn't draw a lot of attention name wise,
Right.
because they're shutting teams down. So I think maybe not next week, but in 2 weeks, let's come up with somebody for each of these stats. At least the ones we're going through now. And then defensive forward of the year. So someone who, honestly, I think, maybe a sneaky one for Western could be Matteo Constantini. I think he's played really, really well in the defensive end this year as a forward. To me at least. So, but yeah, let's go. So we need a player of the year, coach of the year, rookie of the year, goaltender of the year, forward, defensive defenseman, offensive defenseman, and defensive forward. I'll write those down and text them to you.
Yeah, that would be helpful since my mind is
But
mush. I spent 2 hours on random meetings with my boss, and I have more than that tomorrow, and then
yeah,
I have another 2 hours on Thursday.
yeah, and this was
So
a little bit of a longer one. We're at about an hour and a half. So end of the year, man. There's lots to talk about at the end of the year. Lots
that there is
to,
that I'm
to
not denying that one.
speculate and guess on. Big news if you caught it in the episode. Mark your calendars, March 11th. We will have the Western Athletic Director, Dan Bartholome, back on the show after a couple years of him not being here. He'll be back. We can talk about some of the changes around the Western Michigan athletic programs, the hockey team, maybe get some more information on what we talked to Brad about as far as roster size and if Western is going to opt in to that. What is it, like profit sharing or whatever the hell it is?
Yeah, I'll have to listen to that back.
Um, so that might be some stuff we talked to him about. Uh, we will also be wrapping up the regular season on that episode, so that one could be a long one, and we might have to just be like, "Hey, Dan, you need to go? Yeah, so we can wrap this bad boy up." What else? Nope, I think that's the only news we have. I'm working on some other stuff. If people would learn to check their message requests. So, if you know players who have participated in the NCHC and they're on Instagram, tell them to check their message requests. Because I got a lot floating around the ether of the internet that people check their stuff, they would notice. Last thing to say, I guess, there's some YouTube stuff. That's always the same. Down there, there's buttons to click if you want to.
We've done this long enough. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's always the same. Stuff's been scrolling. If you need to get a hold of people, it's down there. You'll figure it out. Last thing is the best thing. Pucks on net, good things happen like goal horns and fight songs. Till the next episode. He's Mike. I'm Wes. We're out of here. Bye.